Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another day in our course, English 281. I'm excited to be here. I hope you are too. This is another format that I'm going to be visiting you with, or coming to you through, that's a better way, throughout the course. Certainly, we have our live webinars, but on the days that we don't have a live webinar, you can count on a little personalized video just for you that you can watch on demand. I'm going to use these little videos just to thread together some things that I'm thinking as I reread the stories or maybe revisit the podcasts right along with you. And as I was preparing for today, I was struck by the importance of voice, the voice that we use to tell a story. In literary circles, voice is a unique feature that an individual author brings to his or her work. Think of it this way. If you were to take a copy of anything that Mark Twain wrote, say Huckleberry Finn, and compare it to anything that Stephen King wrote, say The Dead Zone, you could probably tell that there are significant differences in the voices that the two authors use in their writing. That is for a number of reasons, but primarily it's a storytelling platform that the author uses for a very specific purpose. So today what I'd like to do is talk to you a little bit about voice, and as we bring up the right page here, I'll kind of show you what we're talking about. First of all, you'll note that on Thursday, as you're probably looking at this video that's somewhere in this section, I have a list of associated links right here that you'll be using to work through some of the content and generate some of, process some of these ideas and maybe generate your own thinking. But the first one that I want you to take a look at is something kind of interesting, and maybe you've already encountered this before. It's the New York Times dialect quiz. This was published in December of last year, so just, about 7 months ago. And it is the most read article in the entire history of the New York Times website. What it does is it walks you through an abbreviated version of a dialect quiz that was part of a much larger study at Harvard University. And by answering some of these questions, a map is generated as to where the dialect of English that you use probably originated from. And what I find really interesting about this map is your findings at first may not seem to make very much sense. If I were to show you the map that was generated just now for me when I completed this quiz on my own, it certainly showed that there was a concentration of my dialect probably came from Kansas, but then there were these concentrations from all other parts of the country. And the only way that I can explain that is, well, I'm, in my mid-30s. I have a couple of college degrees, more than a couple. But I've also read a lot of writing from across the entire world. And primarily in the United States, of course, is where a lot of my research is conducted, authors who have written from the United States. But my gosh, yeah, my dialect has been shaped with each book that I read, with each encounter that I make with new people from all over the country. So I have this little hypothesis working that the older that you are, or perhaps the more gray hair that you have, perhaps the more diversified your map looks. So I'd like you to today just to examine, we'll take this quiz and to determine what might influence the way that a person talks or their voice. So as you kind of do this inward reflection and you examine your own results from this map, maybe you can begin to make some thesis or prediction as to how the results on this map can be influenced. Now, like I said, this is an abbreviated version of a much larger quiz that was developed for a study conducted by some linguists at Harvard and other Ivy League schools. So certainly if you were to take the entire quiz, your results would be a little bit more fine-tuned. But what's great about this is it gives you kind of maybe just a peek at what some of those results would have been maybe on the larger quiz. The second link that I'd like you to take a look at in this consideration of voice is an interview by one of my favorite authors. His name is Harry Crews. And this is a clip from a documentary that was produced on his life. He's basically sitting in his recliner in his living room, telling his life story. And I think you'll see a number of connections between what Harry Crews is saying about language and experience and how that translates into his writing. Harry's a very interesting character. I first ran into his work when I was a graduate student at Kansas State University and have followed it with just admiration from the very beginning to the very end. I went back and read some of his early work and went on and read some of his later works. And as you'll see in his interview, he makes mention of how his work has changed over time and why he made those specific changes. I think you'll get a sense after watching this clip from Harry what the focus of this class is going to be if it hasn't been already made clear to you yet. He talks about, I think, what is the most important aspect of a undergraduate creative writing short story course. And he mentions it in his video pretty quickly in the first 3 minutes. So take a look at his experience and see what you can learn from that. The last video that I wanted you to take a look at for this little module is a conversation with Lori Moore. For today, you're going to read 2 of Lori Moore's stories. Lori has a very unique writing style when it comes to short fiction. The 2 stories that were picked for this textbook that we're reading were picked purposefully. They are sort of outside what we would typically consider the generic boundaries of short story writing. The first, of course, is a retelling of an actual life experience that she went through as a young mother. And the second is an excerpt from a biography that she wrote on becoming a writer. And I have some quiz questions related to both of those stories that you'll probably encounter when you take the quiz later today. But the one thing that I want you to think about is why do these approaches to writing that Lori Moore uses work? What works about them? What is particularly unique and compelling about them? Think about as someone who's just walking through a bookstore and you find these stories sitting on the shelf. What makes you want to pick them up and read them more? Additionally, I should probably point out on the quiz, you'll need to answer one question based on the 2 podcasts that I've listed for today as well. So listen to those, and those are more opinion-based questions. So make sure you understand the stories that are being told and be able to generate some kind of opinion or brief analysis of those stories, if you will. Primarily what I want you to look at is what makes those 2 stories memorable. Ted Conover is an author who works in a prison as a guard, and he has a very compelling story to tell about his experiences. What is so compelling about his experience? What lessons does he learn as a prison guard? The second story by Steve Osborne is about a police officer who has a very interesting encounter with a drug dealer as he's working his beat in New York City. And it was such an interesting and memorable encounter that the assailant, the criminal, never forgets the work that Steve Osborne, the police officer, did for him. So I want you to think about what makes those 2 stories compelling and what makes them memorable. For that, I think I'm going to leave it for now. Between now and as you'll see in the next pane down here where it says assignments, I'm going to update these just a little bit to give you some deadline information. But I want you to take the first reading quiz, listening quiz today before 11:59 p.m. I'd also like to receive an email from you regarding your research proposal. Last we met on Tuesday, we all picked our research topics. Now I'd like you to just type out a quick, 5 or 6 line rough outline showing me some of the areas that you're going to investigate on the author that you chose. And then I'd also like you to, between now and the due date isn't listed here yet, but between now and Saturday, I'd like you to write a brief personal narrative. We talked a little bit about personal narratives on Tuesday. Really, a personal narrative is just an essay that tells a story. Essays have certain things. They have, a theme and a message embedded within. And what I want this personal narrative to be about is about a memorable character or person from your life or your lived experience. We talked a little bit about what that means on Tuesday. But I want you to think about who this one person is and why they stand out as memorable or lasting in your memory. And I'd like you to compose a little personal narrative about that person. No more than 2 pages typed. Let's keep these relatively short. If you have to go longer, please do, but don't feel like you have to write pages and pages for this. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the most refined writing. Sometimes just getting it down on paper first is really important. So think about those things, and I look forward to reading your personal stories as they come in on Saturday. If you have any questions, please let me know. I look forward to chatting with you each about the contents of not only this course, but the writing that you're going to put forth as well. Have a great day.